Cooperators, United for Mitchell Lama.
Thank you.
Thank
For
you.
the opportunity
Thank
to
you.
testify this evening. And my name is Adele Niederman, and I am president of the Cooperators United for Mitchell-Lama. Our members are residents and shareholders in Mitchell-Lama cooperatives, and we work to preserve Mitchell-Lama cooperatives as affordable, moderate-income housing community in New York City. We are an excellent example when we are properly governed and committed to remaining in the Mitchell-Lama program of how co-ops can provide housing at an affordable price while serving as anchors and assets in their neighborhoods. We are limited equity co-ops. We have 88 distinct separate developments with 64,476 units. If we are committed to remain in Mitchell-Lama, we can preserve 64,476 units and meet Mayor de Blasio's goal of 200,000 with a stroke of a pen. Since our creation in the 1950s by bipartisan action of the legislature, only 9 developments, only 9, that's 5,777 units, have withdrawn from the program. Fewer than 10% of the original developments have left the cooperative program, whereas the rental program has been torn apart with great harm to those residents and their communities. We are Mitchell-Lama cooperatives. We are a testament to stable, diverse, cooperative communities that provide desirable housing. Like all New York City real estate, we are under tremendous pressure to privatize, and we need to protect and to continue as Mitchell-Lama Co-op limited equity co-ops. One of the first casualties of privatization is the sense of community and loss of democracy. Boards that previously might have governed well in an honest and transparent manner become dictatorial and secretive in their pursuit of leaving the Mitchell-Lama program. For this reason, we urge the committee to insist that oversight agencies, the New York State HCR and New York City HPD, intensify their monitoring of buildings in the midst of a privatization battle. Particular attention needs to be paid to, we need to protect whistleblowers. Boards use confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements to prevent co-op-wide discussion of board actions. We need better regulation to deal with the conflict of interest of employees of management companies that serve on boards or board committees and influence contracts with commercial vendors or push boards towards privatization. We need to protect free speech and assembly in our buildings. Boards frequently restrict access to the community room by resident groups that are critical of board actions and oppose privatization. Boards also restrict the distribution of information and canvassing for political purposes if the resident group opposes privatization. And supervisory agencies have responded that shareholders must organize and elect shareholders to the board to influence and change these decisions. Unfortunately, a corporation does not really encourage democracy and dissenting shareholders. Those that favor preservation and staying in the Mitchell-Lama program have found it incredibly hard to elect candidates to the board. We need to verify the primary residence and confirm that shareholders reside in their apartments. We are concerned with the number of undirected proxies presented during voting and the number of shareholders that do not live in their apartments. HPD and HCR need to conduct an audit of primary residence prior to major votes on privatization to preserve the integrity of the voting process. When CU4ML brought this issue to the attention of HPD, we were told that it was up to residents to notify HPD of specific apartments where the shareholders were not residing. It is the responsibility of the supervising agencies to confirm that shareholders are residents. individuals do not have resources to mount this campaign. We need to eliminate undirected proxies, and we have to aim to reduce voting abuses without suppressing votes. We need to improve the protection of the secret ballot. We have to eliminate voter intimidation by setting up more detailed voting procedures. For example, we need to encourage absentee ballots, but we have to insist that they be submitted to the election supervisors prior to the vote to prevent undue intimidation of voters. We have to restrict windfall profits. We need to introduce and pass legislation that would recoup the tax subsidies the co-ops have enjoyed over their lifetime if they do privatize. The state legislature should instruct the supervisory agencies, that's HCR and HPD, to be more observant of illegal warehousing and the failure to sell all apartments up to the last day of the cooperative's existence as a Mitchell-Lama cooperative. Rules and laws need to prevent windfall profits by a few people after privatization. These profits fly in the face of good public policy and the preservation of affordable housing. A Mitchell-Lama co-op in my neighborhood that privatized in Upper West Side of Manhattan on 94th and Columbus. They withdrew from the program in 2009, so they're now a private co-op. And they have financed all of their major repairs by selling the corporate apartments that people who left the Mitchell-Lama said they didn't want to stay or they stayed on as rentals. So these rental or corporate apartments have been sold. In the 6th year, this co-op sold 29 apartments. 18 were private sales and 11 were corporate sales. 18 individuals walked away with windfall profits, some making over $1 million. They paid very little at the time of the original purchase, maybe $5,000, maybe. And their maintenance was subsidized for close to 40 years. Is this why the program was set up? To nurture these 18 individuals so that they could profit? Please note that the 11 corporate sales indicated that a good number of these apartments were warehoused. And we were told by HPD that warehousing is illegal. And that's the end of the story. It's illegal. They state it's illegal, but still it goes on. And the president of this co-op is going to other co-ops and saying, this is a way you can finance your privatization. The state legislature should set public policy for affordable housing and should not abandon this role to residents tempted by huge profits. The Mitchell-Lama program was a creation of the state legislature and should not be ended by individual actions within co-ops. There is no cost to the state or the city to permanently protect Mitchell-Lama cooperatives and prohibit privatization. 64,476 units can be preserved in perpetuity with progressive legislation. Take the leadership role in this fight. Don't wait till it becomes a shambles. And please support legislation to end the option of privatization. Various bills are available to work towards this goal. 2 more items. Please prevent HPD from encouraging Article 2 to Article 11 conversion. They stuck this into the Mitchell-Lama regulations. They did not hold a hearing on this. They think this is the best thing available. Since it was done in 2011, only one building is interested, and that building just signed a massive refinance agreement last year. So they got the refinancing, and now they're going to leave the program. Article 11 is good for the HDFCs. I can't comment on that program. We've heard tremendous testimony tonight. It's not good for Mitchell-Lamas because it gets rid of the waiting list. So it throws all those people who are waiting for an apartment and hoping for an apartment, throws them out the door. These developments, which are affordable now, will definitely not be affordable in the future if the selling price is set according to some AMI determination, and especially in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. It is a bad idea, and we need to get rid of it. We need to get similar financing that HDC offers HPD co-ops for the HCR supervised co-ops. We need that financing. We have significant number of buildings and units that are HCR state supervised, and they have no place to go for repair loans. And one more thing that's come up. There are no loans available for anybody on a Mitchell-Lama waiting list if they're offered an apartment. We need credit unions. When we went back within our organization, we started sharing stories of how we got into Mitchell-Lama. I was a baby. My mother co-signed my loan agreement with a credit union. There are no credit unions available for people to go to. And it was a relatively easy, safe thing to do. We need those credit unions again. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Niederman, I certainly want to say thank you because as a guy that who grew up in the Mitchell-Lama, my mother actually still lives there, my 95-year-old mother. I understand.
Say mazel tov, like they say for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're coming down to the end, and as much as you can condense your testimony would be great. Tina D. Feliciano Tonio, as in a panel with what? Maria C. Garcia. Is she with you? Oh, you're by yourself. Huh? It's a panel.
Panel.
It's a panel.
We didn't know there was a panel.
Together.
All right.
All right. There we go. I just do what I'm told.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Is this on?
And first of all, I want to thank Mr. Pichardo for hanging with me here.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
thank you so much. And we actually have another event to go to, but that's another stuff. But go. We're here.
Do you want to go first?
Well, I'll briefly say I'm representing.
Is your mic
Speak
on?
into the mic, please.
Is your mic on?
Hello?
See the little red light?
The red light is on.
There it is. It's on there.
Can you hear me?
Oh, big.
Okay. So my name is Maria Garcia, and I work for the Community Board. However, I'm here representing myself as an HDFC stakeholder, and also because my parents live in a Mitchell-Lama in the Bronx. So I would like to give a little insight as to my experience on the board when first purchasing. And the information I want to share is maybe perhaps to have a guidance for giving boards obligations to have to be responsible for, not just because boards tend to, they have their own agreements and they have their own rules, but however, I think it would be helpful for all buildings to be more successful if there were requirements for boards in order to be on a board, period. So one of the big items is full disclosure. So co-op boards and management companies should be required to provide quarterly reports to shareholders with minutes and financial reports. The job of a board is time-consuming, laborsome, and thankless. There's always a need to communicate projects that are being worked on and the status of the building. Board and management company documentation should not be accessible only at an off-site location and available only during normal business hours when majority of stakeholders are at regular work sites. Boards and management companies should be disclosing at all times. Accountability. The management company should be accountable to some outside city or state entity. Management companies and their agents are not neutral parties and do not necessarily work in the best interests of the stakeholders. Shareholders are always the last to know. Oftentimes, once unethical or illegal activity has taken place, the shareholders tend to find out only in such cases where there is some sort of financial default, i.e. when enough maintenance payments have not been made by a particular shareholder, for instance, At a time of resale, when a bank will not lend a particular buyer any money, and because the building is in arrears, for instance. Reliable and credible resources for the boards. So as a new board member, there was a lot of information that I did not know. There's a lot of testimony here, especially given previous that has specific examples where there was a lot of issues in a building. So when a board is first created at the initial time of purchase, members will need to have a list of reliable services. This should be made available of certified and ethical professionals such as surveyors, law professionals, managing companies, and realtors who are familiar with the specifics of these type of co-op housing structures, for instance. Annual board training requirements. Co-op boards should be required to take home ownership courses such as those provided by HPD, which are online, on video, in audio, on digital libraries. Discrimination. Discriminatory behavior can be experienced by co-op boards at the time of purchase, sale, during a leasing agreement, etc. Boards tend to become cliques and can operate as a sovereign nation. Without facts and reports, it becomes very difficult to know what part of the rumor mill or what is part of a rumor mill or what is factual, and can lead to shareholders that are not supportive or trusting of the decisions made by the boards. And the last point I want to just briefly say is the developer or the sponsor experience. Before a co-op board becomes responsible for the business of running a building, they should be well informed about how to create and hold accountable a punch list for completion by this developer. So in our instance, there was a lot of issues in the building that were structural. There was a timeline in which we can have this developer sponsor responsible to fix these things. There was a lot of infighting with the board, and so the time went on and lapsed. So all shareholders should receive training regarding term limits for the life of very costly items such as roof repairs, elevators, plumbing, and that information should be privy to the whole entire stakeholder body, because sometimes what happens is the board is responsible for making decisions. They may not know how to make those decisions, but all the stakeholders generally are very invested in this, so they tend to jump in and want to help. But if the board is the only sovereign entity with power, it's very hard to pass that wall. At a certain time, the developer can no longer be responsible for this punch list. Knowing the statute of limitations for the responsibility should be made clear at the beginning of the life of the co-op property. Boards tend to suffer from infighting, and during this critical period, right after purchase, all shareholders may need to communicate building challenges to some outside entity, and that entity can come inspect and provide guidance and support. That's my testimony. Also, we only get one annual meeting where we're privy to financial statements. You're not at the meeting. You're considered
What is the address of your development?
255 West 148th Street, Washington.
I thought you said it was in the Bronx.
My mother is in the Mitchellama in the Bronx. It's Lindenville, 355 Olinville Avenue.
Yeah, that is you.
No, that's Councilmember, I think that's Carl's district.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Tina DeFelicia Antonio. I live
I
down
just
in.
messed up your old name.
No, it's very. You did a great job. Anyway, I would thank you for holding this hearing, and to all the people that have spoken so far. I'll apologize in advance. I just found out about the meeting yesterday, and I've been working, so I haven't been able to type up a coherent statement. But it might be a little rambly, but it brings up, I think, a variety of things that were brought up already, and maybe will highlight some other areas. Basically, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a social issue documentary filmmaker, and I've been doing it for over 30 years. I don't have any savings at this point. I don't have any IRAs. I'm living off of borrowed funds. But I do have, I do live in an HDFC and was able to afford it. The maintenance is low, 130 West 26th Street. And it's a live workspace is what I was really looking for, because I could afford to live and work and have my office there. So anyway, so I've been dancing on the head of a pin for 30-something years and making these films. We're doing a film on torture right now. And I also have a special needs son. I am on the board of CB4, and I coach your quality of life. I'm on the Homeless Shelter Advisory Board, and I've been going to the UHAB meetings. So I'm really involved in the community, which is really odd because I have such a problem in my co-op. Our co-op is 6 units, 6 floors. There were 6 members of the board. Last week, it was just reduced to 3. Let's see. I will apologize again as I look at my notes. Our building is next to a construction site. It's a small building. We're not very big. The construction site damaged our building. It is leaning and being held up by I-beams. So we're in a bit of a distressful situation. We would have fallen over if the Department of Buildings didn't force the owner of the lot to hold us up. And on our other side, the building is going to be demolished. So, God knows what's going to happen to the construction of our building. Our building, the people in our building came up with a scheme, and they acted as if it was a new idea. Basically, I was in the basement, and some guy says, "Oh, the tension here is so bad because my girlfriend and I are business people, but we're also creatives and believe in transparency and that sort of thing." And he said, "It's so stressful here. What do you think if we sell the building?" I said, "Well, it would solve a lot of problems. We got lawsuits, engineers, money bleeding. It's a disaster, right?" And so right away, I started researching it over the weekend. And he had told me on that Friday, he said, "Don't bring it up for the board meeting. Let my girlfriend bring it up because no one will take up what you want to say." I found out that they were meeting with commercial developers for 2 months. And they proceeded to, we proceeded to interview 6 attorneys to give us a game plan on how to sell, as Gail was saying, to sell the entire building. One woman came up and said, "Oh, I think I can find loopholes." My girlfriend and I believe in affordable housing. Our babysitter was homeless for 2 years when we first hired her. There's an ethics as well that we believe in, and it's not about making money because God knows I don't have any money, right? So they went ahead with it, and they were moving in the direction of selling it, and I had no choice. I went to the Attorney General's office, and I said, "This is a memo. I'm very concerned that the board," and I'm on the board, "is about to commit fraud." And so she got involved and shut it down, and there has been hell to pay. Hell. My life has been hell. My girlfriend has been told to go F herself in the lobby. How do you live your life? You're so fat and ugly. We've been told in front of colleagues that, because it's a live workspace. We also have colleagues there. I can't even tell you the fact that there's a camera here. I mean, I told them I was coming here and invited them, but God only knows the price I'm going to pay. So there's a couple things to just move on. One of the things is with an HDFC, I bought it for full market price. There's only one person left in the building who bought for $250, and I believe that when buying into these situations, people should look at assets. I found out that one of the people on our board, by looking through the records in the basement, she has a trust fund worth $15 million. And these are the people that are screaming at me because my emails are too long. And I just feel like what, this is, and they want to sell the building. I mean, how much she could buy the building, I don't even know, that sort of thing. So I think that's one thing that the government needs to take a look at is assets. Also, in my old building, the co-op, one thing we looked at was gifting by parents. We felt that, this is my other co-op, I was on the board, and we thought, well, if parents are gifting, do these young people have a vested interest in the building and being good neighbors, so forth and so on. So I think that's something HPD or whatever agency is going to continue to rule and regulate over this, that also gifting, because what ends up happening is rich people get in. And, mortgages are really hard to come by. I got lucky and got a no document loan. I won't be able to get that now. But I think that's something people need to look at as well. Let me just try to go through. Also, to bring up your issue of confidentiality in the board, I know that boards were, regulated, and the judicial system has supported the regulations that boards can be run basically as like AT&T. They don't want shareholders to have information because, they'll cause all kinds of problems. We as co-ops and HDFCs are under the wrong regulatory agreement. We're under, wrong judicial case law that has repeatedly supported the fact that boards can have unlimited, power without having to answer to shareholders unless the shareholders hire an attorney. And that is just a mistake. And it's an old mistake, and I don't know how to undo it, but I think it's ridiculous. I myself, the board has told me, I can't talk to anybody. They spent $10,000 on this lawyer to find a loophole where the AG's office said, she intervened, and $2,500 writing up a non-disclosure gag order towards me and my partner with liquid damages so that we don't talk to anybody. So I'm very honest and straightforward. You might not like my personality, but I am. And so I said, here's a report from the UHAB meeting that I was telling everybody about. You should come up to Harlem and participate. So I gave them a nice rundown, and I talked about the East Side Credit Union. It was one of the ones that exist. And I got that next morning, on Saturday morning, I got 6 nastygram emails before 11 o'clock. One says the following: the email below constitutes, now I'm just giving them information that I was at a UHAB meeting, constitutes unethical behavior and is a clear and present violation of the statutes of how a co-op building operates. These issues that are being addressed in individual, the grammar, directly to outside parties, credit unions, task forces, HPD, UHAB, have never been voted on by any shareholder in any manner. We have never voted on or approved in any way these discussions on this strategy. These actions, once again, are a violation of co-op board covenants, our bylaws, and voted on communication strategy. They actually had a second letter written up against me by an attorney. No one person or shareholder has the right to speak on the building's behalf, which I'm not doing. This is clearly happening. We need to address your unethical behavior. So it's, people don't even, it's kind of like this: you have no recourse unless you hire an attorney. And I don't have money, so I had to borrow money to hire an attorney to basically say, stop harassing my clients. There was like Dyke and PUSSY in the lobby, and I said, can we please clean this up? And they said, well, we didn't notice, and not everything happens on your time frame. And it just remained. I said, I'll do it myself. And then I was told I was a bully. And then one of the children in the co-op said it bothered her, and that's when they covered it up. And it's just this, carte blanche. We don't like you, and we have the power to make your life miserable. And I personally don't get it. But when I did go to the AG against the selling of the building, and I had some frank discussions with her, I basically said, she got into the whole, not just the sale of the building, but the purchase price of the apartments, which brings up the attorney's perspective. And she said, well, you know, your building is selling at market rate, and that's not going to happen anymore. I said, well, how am I supposed to pay back my creditors and my mortgage if I can't sell at least for what I bought it for? And she basically said, that's the way it's going to be. Tough luck. You should have had an attorney review your paperwork. I said, well, I did. She said, well, you should have hired a better attorney. I said, I'm sorry. I hired the best attorney I could for the price. She went all over. There's no regulatory agreement. Everything says that these stipulations have expired until the Attorney General put out this, you know, this, I don't know, this, I guess, a position paper in July of last year that only dealt with the sale of the building. But basically she told me, you know, I said, I have a kid, he's got special needs, I have nothing. This is my only equity, and it's damaged. I can't sell it. The building's falling over. I said, that's the last thing I need is for you to say you're going to enforce non-market rates. And she said, well, it's just too bad. I said, well, you're just kicking people like me aside. And that just brings up, then I'm sorry for rambling, that I think that whoever is on this regulatory task force, I don't know who they are. I don't know where the mission statement is. I don't know anything. And why isn't there more transparency? My feeling is that in this political climate with our mayor, who I respect the need for, you know, affordable housing, that we are going to get swept up into like clumps instead of individuals. Like the government made this mistake. They didn't think ahead. They didn't allow for what is happening now. And now a lot of people are going to have to pay the price because there's so many different variations that to put sort of a couple different options of, you know, on the regulatory agreement is going to be devastating to people. And and when I was talking to the AG's office, she was basically, you know, too bad. And I said, you and I are going to have some discussions if you're talking about too bad, because what you're saying is wrong. All constituents should be considered. The people in this building, like someone else said, they came into Chelsea when there were prostitutes and drugs and buildings falling apart, and they took a risk and they worked hard and they made a viable building out of it. So that is a question about market. We're half in and half out. So what do you do with market rate? And should we really get the benefit of tax deductions? I don't think so. But I do think that the government has to allow for some sort of phase-in so that people like me and the elderly people in the building don't get tossed out because we can't afford the maintenance because the taxes go up. It's just kind of a mess. And I'm urging you guys and the government to make sure that you're taking all of these very complicated, fine lines into consideration because it's affecting people. If you're in an HDFC, you're not on Park Avenue, and bad decisions can completely ruin people's lives.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, and that's why we're having this hearing, so that we can hear all facets and all aspects of this voluminous question.
Yes, and I thank you for that.
Thank
and
you
I've
very
learned a lot from everybody here.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
Sorry,
it.
I was
Thank you.
And I'm sorry what's been happening in your building. It's terrible. I'm sorry.